How many say? Only one? Can you right? Yeah. Just wait a little bit. Alright, so now you want to wait and see that. A little one. Okay. Haribo.
says he gets the prize for the best dress for the young man. So, on behalf of Iskcon Atlanta, I'd like to welcome all the devotees, visiting guests and members, and congregation devotees, and especially like to welcome His Holiness Ramapada Swami Maharaj. There's anyone who is here for the first time coming to this temple? Okay. So we have Ramapada Maharaj who will be speaking on Sunday lecture. So let's welcome His Holiness Ramapada Swami Maharaj by chanting Hare Krishna one time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Actually, Vedasampa Mukti told me to make an announcement that he got stuck in the traffic, so he could not come. But he'll be here by another half an hour or 40 minutes.
Oh, that is traffic.
So, Ramapada Maharaj, then, direct disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and he's also Iskcon initiating spiritual master, Guru, and he's traveling all over the world preaching, and he's also very expert in giving Hari Katha, Krishna Katha to other devotees, other people. And he knows so much Shastras, you can hear him, and I'm sure that you'll all enjoy his class. So, let's give a welcome for Ramapada Maharaj. Hari Bo! Hari Bo! Hari Bo! So Maharaj will be here for a few days. In the morning, he'll also be giving class, Bhagavatam class in the morning here at 8 or 5 a.m. in the morning. And then in the evening also he'll be giving lectures in the temple sometime and sometime at the Discovery Center. If you don't know the Discovery Center is just on the left-hand side. This is a guest house building, so we call it Discovery Center. You can go there in the evening. And they will program every day with Maharaj. So please come. Hare Krishna.
Now, I have a cold. It's not, don't worry, I wouldn't be here if I would think it would spread. But my voice is a joke. So this little girl, this is your brother? You're a young player? No. Who's this little boy? You're not brother, sister. You're just friends. Would you like to sing Jai Ramapada? Or, if not, I'll just say pranam mantras. Okay. Here's the microphone. You know the words. You guys are not players.
Krishna can play drum.
Somebody play cartels.
Thank you.
Yes. Which bell? The bell that rings is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, I think it's text 43, where the sages, in Chapter 1, the sages of Naimisharanya asked Sutta Goswami 6 questions, Chapter 1. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Sutta Goswami answers. And the last of the 6 questions was, now that Krishna has departed from his abode, where will religious principles take shelter? Because religious principles were sheltered by Krishna, and he's left. And now that he's left, what's the shelter for religious principles? For this dark age of Kali? The answer is light of the Bhagavad. The poetry is very nice, but Sutta Goswami says, I'll just keep the poetic part, just like at night on the western horizon the sun may set, but shortly after the sun sets the moon may rise on the eastern horizon. And when that moon rises, that's as brilliant as the sun that people in this dark age of Kali can get light from the Bhagavad. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam appeared shortly after Krishna's departure. And that shortly after appearance in the Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun, the light of the Bhagavad. So in this dark age of Kali, shelter in religious principles is found. The highest religious principle is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The very second book that Srila Prabhupada wrote during his budding life as a world acharya was this book, Light of the Bhagavatam. You want two microphones? Okay, that's fine with me. Make me feel important. Two microphones. This is different sound systems. That's what's going on. Yes. Okay. So as you see on the right side of the screen there's one of the several covers for Light of the Bhagavad. And this is going to be a description of the journey of leading to Prabhupada's creating this book. And it's a very nice journey. Srila Prabhupada was living as a householder until 1954. And during the earlier stages of his life as a householder, he had children, he had a wife, he had parents. He was living the life of a householder. However, his wife was not inclined as he was. And he tried gently, and powerful personality, but his wife was a little stubborn. Here's a nice photograph taken in Allahabad in 1952, where they went there for a posing for a portrait. And right next to Prabhupada's left shoulder, in the center there, is his father, short, diminutive stature, Gaur Mohante. In Prabhupada's lap, and to the far right side, on the lap of his widowed sister. He had more than one sister, but Rajeshwari was one of his sisters. And Rajeshwari's son is right behind Prabhupada's father, Tulsidas. And then by Prabhupada's backside, that's his wife. So he was trying to encourage. During those days, printed books were very rare. Mostly books were handwritten. Prabhupada happened to have a nice copy, not with all the purports, but a copy of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And, this celebrated his tyranny, and his wife defiantly bartered his Bhagavatam for some tea biscuits. I don't even know what a tea biscuit is. That was it. And in 1954, at the age of 59, Prabhupada left his family life, Vanaprastha. Now, by this time, his sons were grown up. They could take care of the business. They knew how to run the business. He could take care of his wife. He didn't just leave them in the lurch. But he didn't take anything with him. He didn't take any money. He just left. Disappointed, yet very determined, because he had received instructions twice, and then it went inside, deep into his heart, from Bhaktisiddhanta to give the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the English-speaking parts of the world. So there he was, in north of Calcutta. He took a train to anywhere, and he ended up in a place that was just a short distance south. Here's what it says. Yeah. Jhargram. He didn't have a destination, just was Vanaprastha. And in the course of his travels, many obstacles, but somehow he met these two ladies that had a property in Jhansi, and they had named it Radha Memorial, but they wanted Prabhupada just for the nice temple, Radha Krishna temple. So he agreed, and you see a big sign on the boundary wall, League of Devotees. As Prabhupada did when he came to America, in written language he established and incorporated, or whatever the language is for India, formally registered this society, League of Devotees. Different language but similar purposes as Iskcon. And in course of time, he came to understand two things. The ladies were tricky, and there was a competitor. And they kind of favored the competitor, although they had already spoken to him that he could develop a Radha Krishna temple. So then they made a condition that he had to complete the construction by such and such date, otherwise he would forfeit everything. He would that because he knew business people. So he walked. And when he left Jhansi, he went to Mathura. He carried with him a deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because that's Bhaktisiddhanta, his guru, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, his life and soul. So he, many places he went, but one of the places he went was to Mathura because he had received an invitation from Bhakti Pragya Kesava Maharaj, who was the leader of the Gaudiya Math in Mathura, the Kesava Gaudiya Math, one of the original deities that the great-grandson of Krishna established. And he was the leader there, but he was also, like Ramapada, very gifted in writing, so gifted in his writing skill. He was very learned. Kesava Maharaj invited Prabhupada to come help him in Mathura in the editing and publishing of Gaudiya Patrika. It was a Bengali rendering of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. And around the same time, shortly thereafter, he received a similar invitation from Bhakti Saranga Maharaj to go to Delhi and help him with the printing of the harmonies, which was in English, also in another version called Sajjana Doshini. So Prabhupada went to Delhi and kind of moved back and forth between the two, Mathura and Delhi, and so far. And he was mission-oriented. Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. These are two publications that were given to him, and he was invited to assist the chief editors. So when he went to Delhi, all this information is from Leelamrita. It was difficult. It was difficult in many ways. One of them was the temple was disorganized, and it wasn't clean, and the standards of deity worship were off. And the brahmacharis living in the ashram did what brahmacharis that are trained would sometimes do, quarrel and quibble. It wasn't a very inviting atmosphere. But he stayed for some time because of Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. And here's a little description from Leelamrita. In Delhi, those of you from North India, you know, winters can be very cold. Abhay was trying to print back the Godhead, so along with helping them with their publication, Prabhupada had begun Back to Godhead, English. In winter's discomfort, he walked through the early morning streets of Delhi to visit Surendra Kumar Jain, the printer, to read the latest proofs. By walking, he saved money. He had no chadar, only a lightweight cotton jacket, and he wore rubber shoes. He also wore a cotton hat that covered his ears and tied beneath his chin, protecting him from the 40-degree, that's Fahrenheit, wintry mornings. and sometimes gusty winds. And then came summer. Summer in Delhi is scorching many times. Summer came in 110-degree heat. It had almost intolerable to spend time outdoors. Hot, dust-laden wind blew in the city streets. Street-side hawkers closed their businesses during the day. In early May, during 112-degree heat, a man collapsed in the street and died of heat stroke. But the body ignored the heat and the ordinary limitations of the body. Now let's do a little math. He left the Grahastha ashram when he was 59, and that was 1956. So he's spending 2 years, excuse me, 54, spending 2 years approximately, and 2 more years to 59, so he's in his early 60s. Trying to, the longer term mission is what was given to him directly by Bhaktisiddhanta. At the same time, there's others who are godbrothers, qualified like he is, academically and literary and so forth, to assist them. So finally he decided, 2 years later, to move to Vrindavan because he thought that would be an ideal place for him to complete his mission, preparing to go to the west. And the place where he stayed is a nice place, very simple place. You can visit it. There's nice little. Many of you have read in Ramapada, there are 5,000 Radha Krishna temples in Vrindavan. This is one of them. There's 4,999 other ones. And there's the outside. And he stayed there for 6 years. And during this time is when he composed anything, but he composed like the Bhagavad, you'll see shortly. So there's the front walk-up area. There's directly perpendicular, seeing the walk-up area. When you go up those little set of steps and go inside that door, here's what you see inside the door. It's a courtyard with a cow and a calf and a tulsi plant. And on the left side, you see where the altar is. And inside the altar, there's the deities of Shri Shri Radha, Vamsi Gopal. And notice, Vamsi Gopal is not holding his Vamsi. Because when you make a Bhoga offering to the deity, you take the flute away. So you can eat without interference with the flute. But it's a nice photograph, very nice close-up photo. And this is the deity that he served and worshipped for 6 years. Now let's take a look at the place where he stayed. The place where he stayed has tall, Indian-style steps going up, 28 steps. Here's the first set. Here's the second set. And here is his room. And this is the place where Prabhupada stayed for 6 years, where I'm going to ask you to keep this image in your mind as we go forward, to see this is where the world Acharya began, envisioning a worldwide Hare Krishna movement when he had nothing. The room was 17 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 10-foot tall ceilings. The paint job wasn't really great either. No water, no kitchen, no toilet. There's 4 walls. Try it. 6 years, like Boy Scouts or something. It's very simple. So to use the bathroom, he had to go downstairs, which was what the family used, and he shared the bathroom with the family. He shared, he had cooked using a little kerosene burner in his room. And then after cooking, he went downstairs, offered to the deity, so everything was nice prasadam. And he was honored. this little room. And you see that set of doors on the right side of this photograph? It leads to a terrace. You go out onto the terrace, you can look in the back, and you see the river Jamuna. And because this is very near Keshagat, I'll show you a map where Keshagat is shown shortly. So that's the back side. This is the front side, overlooking Prabhupada's room through a window. And there's the little walkway leading up to Vamsi Gopal Temple. Here's a map. In the middle is Vamsi Gopal Mandir, that nice pink pointer. Where it says ancient Sri Yamuna Temple, Vrindavan, that's the Keshagat. And right alongside the river Jamuna, and that's where he was residing. And if you look closely, just below, almost below, it says Sri Gopal Goswami Samadhi, which means that Radharaman Temple, the Radharaman Temple, was very close. So while Prabhupada was staying at this temple, the Vamsi Gopal Temple, he made a very close relationship with Vishwambar Goswami, who played an important role in Prabhupada's life and his preaching. Vishwambar Goswami was one of the principal Goswamis of the principal 6 Goswami temples, and amongst them all, he was the most respected. And it was for that reason, 2 things. It was for that reason that Prabhupada requested Vishwambar Goswami to be fully in charge of the deity installation of Krishna Balaram 3-day festival. Because no one's going to question Vishwambar Goswami, and Prabhupada did, they might. But she was so respected, and so talented, so gifted, so on. And Vishwambar Goswami had relationships with the other Goswamis, that means the other inheritors of the responsibility of overseeing temples, the Goswami temples in Vrindavan. And not far from Radharaman Temple was the Radha-Damodar Temple. And Vishwambar Goswami had a relationship with the Goswami at the Radha-Damodar Temple, and he pulled the strings with that Goswami, the Radha-Damodar Temple, so that Prabhupada could shift from where he was staying at the Vamsi Gopal Mandir to the Radha-Damodar Temple. It was a relationship arrangement by Vishwambar Goswami had great affection for Prabhupada and vice versa. So for these 6 years, Prabhupada made Vrindavan his base. He often traveled. His main project, of course, was writing. But he wanted to make connections. He had to make a passage to India, from India to the West. He needed supporters. And he didn't have anything. He didn't have anything. He didn't have followers. He didn't have any money. He didn't have anything. So he was printing Bhakti-Godhead magazine, and he was going here and there to enlist subscribers for Bhakti-Godhead magazine. And by doing that, he would get to know the names of people and know people who were pious and value Vedic culture, Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava culture. So he went to different cities, particularly he went to Delhi, but he went to other places. He went to Mumbai and other places and other places. But the attempt to get subscribers for Bhakti-Godhead was one thing, and then the vision of going to the West was another thing. So during this period of time, while he's still residing, like 3 years after residing at the Vamsi Gopal Temple, there's Keshava Maharaj. You saw his picture before. There he is in the center. He became a sannyas guru for Srila Prabhupada and one other sannyasi, because he kept insisting with Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj has given you a mission. For you to fulfill the mission, you should accept sannyas. Prabhupada was feeling unqualified, and all those genuine reluctances. But Keshava Maharaj was very powerful. powerful. And so he accepted his encouragement because it would assist him in his mission. Then in July 1962, Gorachand Goswami, who was the chief Goswami of the Radha Damodar temple, at Vishwambar Goswami's encouragement, he approached, Vishwambar did approach the Prabhupada, the Goswami of the Radha Damodar temple approached Prabhupada and said, I have 2 rooms in the courtyard and they're unoccupied. Would you like to stay there? And it's very auspicious because just by out the window of one of these little rooms is the Samadhi and Bhajan Kutir of Rupa Goswami, very auspicious for your work. Now they're godbrothers, they're supporting Prabhupada's mission, although he's not well known yet. And so Prabhupada went, he saw the rooms, they had been occupied in a long time, their condition was really run down, and he estimated it would take 500 rupees to get it inhabitable, and something extra for electricity and something extra for something else. So he negotiated with the Goswami, Gorachand Goswami, and then an arrangement was made that he could make those repairs and he could have, not just during his lifetime, but even after his lifetime, occupancy of those rooms. Because Prabhupada had a vision, his mission was going to go beyond remaining with Radha Damodar temple. And I forget the amount, 15 rupees per month. $5 per month, excuse me. Forever. Now that became, some years later, like not too many years ago, became a point of contention. Oh, come on. But it's enough. It is to be honored. So those are still Prabhupada's rules. That you see in the upper left, that's what it looks like today. And the lower part of that is where the speaker would sit each morning, giving class to whoever would come. And on the lower left, that's Srila Prabhupada, the first year that he brought his Western disciples to see where he stayed and to introduce them to Vrindavan in general, took them around and gave wonderful classes on nectar devotion series, celebrated series at the Radha Damodar temple. There's Prabhupada looking at the bottom right. There are 2 rooms. One that he did his work, like you see on the upper right, and the left, lower right is the sitting place where looking out the window he could see the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami. I mean, it's not a well-known story, but still, it's nice, it's worth repeating. He was feeling not qualified, who am I, so forth and so on. And one fine day, Rupa Goswami came before him, encouraged him. It was like a vision. He didn't come out of his samadhi and say, "Hard go." It was a vision of Rupa Goswami coming before him and saying, "Do not worry, I'll be with you. Everything will be successful." So he was getting direct reciprocation, as was the idea to go there to begin with, from Rupa Goswami. Most of his time, aside from shuttling back and forth and going to Delhi and other places for membership or subscribers to that Godhead, much of his time was in writing Srimad Bhagavatam. And the idea of writing Srimad Bhagavatam was, you'll see a photo shortly, it's just following his Guru Maharaj. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had a vision. And the vision was that the teachings of Lord Chaitanya should be taken all around the world. And the first target outside of India was England. I'll go to that. This is the book that he was, Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada was waiting for this book. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who it was authored by Professor Nishikant Sanyal, who was kind of like a ghostwriter of Bhaktisiddhanta. It was a very wonderful scripture relationship. Sometimes Sanyal would write and Bhaktisiddhanta would take credit, sometimes the other way around. They were very, very, very close. He was a disciple, but Bhaktisiddhanta wanted this book. The departure of the sannyasis to go to England was delayed because the book didn't come out of publication until after it was planned. So their departure was delayed because he wanted them to take this book to introduce to the West who was Lord Chaitanya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya is the book. Similarly, Prabhupada wanted to carry with him Srimad Bhagavatam from Lilamrita. This was his real purpose in coming here. To prepare the books he could distribute to the people of the West. Although he had as yet no means for traveling even as far as Japan, and no means for printing books as far as Japan has to do with the light of the Bhagavad, and you'll see shortly, was an event in Japan that he didn't go to because he didn't have the airfare to go to Japan. He had not come to Vrindavan to die and return to Godhead. Rather, he had come because it was the ideal place to gain spiritual strength for his main life's work. And right in the courtyard of Radha Damodar, very, very special place, a place of Jiva Goswami, and in the back courtyard, Rupa Goswami's Bhajan Guru and Samadhi. The very first book that Prabhupada did write was in 1960. Is it during the time when space travel was becoming a big deal, and Prabhupada knew about it, so he wrote a book about space travel, but he called it Easy Journey to Other Planets. And, it gave a Vedic perspective on contemporary events. Let's see how long it lasts. So, here's the schedule that Prabhupada kept. At 1 a.m., when no one else was up, and it was very quiet, Mataji, do the needful, please. He's a nice boy. At 1 a.m., when no one else was up, and it was very quiet, Bhaktivedanta Swami would wake and begin writing. Since electric failures were not uncommon in Vrindavan, he would often work by lantern light. Maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, regularly. The first of, this is showing the covers of the Srimad Bhagavatam publications. In 62, yay, the first volume of Canto 1, Part 1, printed. In 63, the second volume of Canto 1, Part 2 was printed. And in 64, what year did he travel to America? 65. And then he reached in 66. So he had, following the standard in the model, the example of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta, he now had these 3 books. And while this was going on, lo and behold, in January of 1961, so now we're backing up a little bit, in January of 1961, one of the visits he made to Delhi was a person he met, who had a relationship with, received a pamphlet or a flyer indicating an event that was going to take place in Japan. And the event that was going to take place in Japan was an event called Congress for the Cultivation of Human Spirit, the Rabbis. here's my understanding of what was going on. During World War II and thereafter, everyone locked doors. There were walls up, visas were allowed, everyone was being protected in isolations. However, there were some places where persons were forward-thinking and wanted to, the pendulum started to swing in a different direction. And the forward-thinking people wanted, let's get together and love one another kind of a message. Going away from the other side of the pendulum swing, the after-war recovery, going forward. So there were some forward-thinking people like that. And one of them was organizing an event in Japan. And the event in Japan was an invitation to persons to come. This was January that he received the invitation. And the event was in May. January, February, March, April, May, 5 months max, maybe 4. So, on the map, green there's the subcontinent of India, and over there is Japan. And Bhaktisiddhanta had told him to go to the west. But 1961, here comes this possible opportunity to go to a conference of forward-thinking people in Tokyo. So he thought, why not? Present Srimad Bhagavatam, which is what his heart was into. Remember, he's translating first canto Bhagavatam and wanting to go through the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. That was his heart. And here's his invitation. So he wrote a letter to the organizer. He had an idea. We'll see. He puts it in writing with his ideas. His idea was that Eastern Asia people have a tendency, a liking, a penchant for understanding lessons of life through nature. It's true. And so he thought a real nice approach to this event would be to take Canto 10, Chapter 20 of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is just about scenes of nature, the rainy season and the autumn season. So Chapter 20, interestingly, comes after Chapter 19. And Chapter 19 is the summer. It's the covered boys with Krishna, what they would do in the summertime, this and that, playful. And then comes the rainy season. So they don't do too much because it's the rainy season. So there's lots of description about the nature of rainy season. So Prabhupada's idea was, and then after rainy season, the autumn season. So focusing on scenes of nature, introduce the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's know thy audience. Public speakers need to know their audience. And he hadn't been there before, but he had an idea. And this was his idea. So in January, Prabhupada wrote a letter to the organizer. And here's his letter. This letter was found later in a trunk, along with the manuscript that never got published during Prabhupada's lifetime. Here's the letter to the organizer. I wish to impress the public delegates who would internationally join the conference for culture and human spirit in Japan about the necessity of an international movement. So now, picture in your mind Prabhupada in that little room, the Vamsi Gopal temple, thinking about making a plan for having an international movement. The necessity, not just notion. Towards this unifying purpose, this is Leelamrita, not Prabhupada. You want me to get closer? From Leelamrita. Towards this unifying purpose, Prabhupada's vision was that the cooperation of all enlightened people of the world would be channeled, although there was no international movement at that stage. So his letter continues, kindly therefore listen to the words. Do the needful immediately. Give me a chance to speak the enlightened people of the world, the message of human culture from the Vedic literature, I am sure that such news will change the angle of vision of the world's activities. Think of the globe. One man who had nothing, wanting to change the angle of vision of the world's activities. Prabhupada never thought small. He couldn't. He was like his spiritual master, and like the swami who never thought small. They always thought broad. And sure enough, within a short period of time, he got an invitation letter sufficient to get a visa and a passport, which he didn't have. It's a nice letter. It's basically the letter, I'd read the letter. It says, thanks for your request. We'll take care of your boarding and lodging, and you're going to have to take care of your transportation. So with that invitation letter, remember it's now like probably February, March, April, May. No, Prabhupada started writing assiduously. And there's a close-up of the first cover, or one of the covers. And he composed a 20,000 word manuscript. Some of you sometimes write Vyasa Puja offerings, right? How long did it take you? 20,000 words. And it's his entry into the world stage with the enlightened people, forward-thinking people. He wants to change the direction of the thoughtful people of the whole world. And that's the literature he was composing. And along with the literature, so what he did was he took not exactly translations of the verses from chapter 20, he paraphrased them, or some of them together, in language that he felt was suitable for the audience, giving a picture of nature. And then in his commentary, he gave lessons from Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's masterful. How you weave clouds in the sky with varnashram. Or, the frogs that when they make their sound, it's like the materialistic people that are misleading the population of the world, the sages, and because in Japan, in the Far East, there's respect for elders and holy men, wise men. And so he told the varnashram system, the role of saving people, even got into the gopis, he even got into Vedic cosmology, just from scenes of nature. I'll tell you, because I've made this present, I went through the whole book. Part of the reason for saying this, choosing this topic, is because it's nice, and I have a lot of feeling for it. But when you read the book, I've met people in the course of speaking about this. I read the book, or it's sitting on my shelf and I never read it. But now I want to go back and read it again because it's masterful. Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses, and this is 50. And Prabhupada's telling the Bhagavatam story in 50 verses. It had to be 48, I think. So in addition, as he's going along writing, he's writing a letter to the organizer, asking the organizer to make a display. And what's going to go on the display is the 50 illustrations. And so Prabhupada gave a detailed description, which is found in the trunk, along with the invitation letter and the manuscript that never got published. Prabhupada's words of what he wanted the organizer to do, find an artist that had traditional Oriental art style, and here's what he wanted to be in those 50 paintings. And not only he wanted him to do that, he wanted him to print the book and make big blow-ups that they could have when they come into the conference. They could see that the printing, the color plates would go into the book. He wasn't a small-thinking person. So none of that happened. There was obstacles. He didn't have money. He had a vision. they would take care of his accommodation, but he didn't have airfare. So what did he do? He went to people that had the means. And the answer, in short, was no. I mean, probably a polite no, but no. His message was, I'm a renounced person representing our culture, going to the people that he had met and people that he hadn't met. Please make all arrangements so that I can travel in this way. So it's like a polite way of asking for a donation for his airfare. And he went to government officers, like the Ministry for Scientific Research and Cultural Affairs. He went to the Vice President of India, Dr. Radhakrishnan. Door was closed. Potential donors in Bombay and Delhi, because he had gone to their references from those people and nothing. Japanese gentlemen organizing the event, nothing. Didn't have the money, the airfare to go, or to print the book, or to make the artwork. And so it sat in a trunk. But he wasn't discouraged. This is one thing we learned about our founder Acharya. Even when there wasn't result, he was not discouraged. Look at that image, it's firm resolution in his face. So somehow the articles from his Applied to the Bhagavad made their way into the Aurobindo Ashram publication entitled Lecture Meant to be Delivered at the International Congress in Japan, 1961. "23 years later," this is after Prabhupada's, so add 61 plus 23, what's the number? It's after his departure. They found a trunk. And in the trunk there are many interesting things. But one of them was the manuscript, the letter to the organizer, the description of the paintings, the letter back from the organizer so you get a visa and a passport. And the devotees, I'll say one other thing that I know was in that trunk. One of the things that Prabhupada had been invited to do was, at the time of the Gandhi Memorial, because in his youth Prabhupada was an ardent Gandhi follower, right? And so, in his memorial, he was asked to give a speech. So he not only gave a speech, but conventionally when you give a speech, you write a paper. And you summarize the paper, but the paper is circulated to say the larger message. And in that paper that Prabhupada wrote, he said, the way to honor a great personality, think about us wanting to honor Srila Prabhupada, but the way to honor a great personality is not to name a street after the person, or name a building after the person, or make a statue of the person, which are three common things that are done, but to establish a community where the ideals that were held by that person are lived. Because Gandhi was a great believer and follower of Bhagavad Gita, that place should be called Gita Nagari. Now, that was found in a trunk later. But when Prabhupada first visited what was then called the New York Farm, he gave it a name. Gita Nagari. He didn't say, I wrote about this. Go find it in the trunk. It was just found later. So the devotees in Gita Nagari have taken it. That's our Gita Nagari prophecy. That's what they call it. And they tried to follow it. Of course, it was very specific what Prabhupada envisioned in such a place. But it's a way to honor a great person. So what happened when they found this manuscript in the trunk in 1984, they gave the manuscript to the man that could get impossible done. Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Because at that time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was GBC of China, and he was making his residence in Hong Kong because foreign non-Chinese residents can live in Hong Kong, and so that's where he was based. And he did the needful. The first book was a large size. Maybe you've seen, it's been reproduced in the West, but it was in Chinese. The size of the book was 9 inches by 12 inches. And 48 full-color paintings made by this lady here who was a celebrity, or a well-known artist in mainland China. And Tamal Krishna was the art director. She was the artist, and Prabhupada's design for what he wanted in those paintings was the plan, the blueprint. And over a course of nearly a year, Giridhara Swami said it took about 11 months. She would come once a month, and he would critique her work. Anybody that's interacted with Tamal Krishna knows he's a tough cookie to interact with. He was very, very particular about what he wanted, and to follow what Prabhupada wanted. So, in the course of time, there was 48 paintings, and it became established in this book in Chinese, first published in Chinese. And there's other covers, there's multiple other covers. Here's another one of the other covers. And just a little sharing, I'm going to end shortly. I saw this in Dandavasta, no, where was it? Yeah. Iskcon News, that in Brazil, in Portuguese, in 2017, they had a display in a mall, a shopping center. And in the shopping center, they had all these, exactly what Prabhupada envisioned, blow-ups of all the artwork, not all the artwork, but many of the paintings displayed like this, and then copies of the book, and encouraging people to understand the message of the book, and of course, along with this book, other books, other books. Here's the sign in Portuguese, like the Bible. And because I've been doing this, I came to know from Hanuman Prashik Swami that he's doing the same thing in Spanish-speaking places, particularly in Peru and Chile. He made a movie. I haven't seen the movie. He calls it a bilingual movie. And he's presented it 53 times in prestigious places in South America. You see some of the names. I look at the photograph behind him, what do you see? Painting from Light of the Bhagavad. So he wants to have a conversation with me. How can we promote this in the West? Now, there was a time when simply by presenting an idea to expand literature distribution and preaching Krishna consciousness, just putting an idea out there in the ether, people would jump on it. So Prabhu's putting the idea out in the ether. That find a way, this is a way that can increase the distribution of Prabhupada's books in general, but specifically this book is innocuous. It's Seeds of Nature. Now, the content is weighty, but the art is very beautiful and culturally, nice. It's very pleasing, the artwork. And find a way to have the displays made and find places where the displays can be presented. And then you can speak about the message of life in the Bhagavad, it was Prabhupada and all the others in his books. It's like, put your foot inside the door, the next thing, you're in the room. You follow? And this way, the legacy of our founder Acharya continues on. It doesn't have to wait, it can happen later. It doesn't have to wait. Prabhupada's words, I shall never die, I shall live forever in my books. And going back to what he envisioned, changing the course of human world history through his literature and through his propagating his message. The more you distribute books, history will change. Some of you know, during Prabhupada's youth, there was a very strong effort made in West Bengal to bring communism into West Bengal. And what was the method? Literature distribution. So Prabhupada saw it. He witnessed it, he experienced it. And he took that principle, and that's the principle that he applied in our Krishna movement. There's still going on. There are different ways through different media. But it's to change the history of the world. And in his case, the vision was the history of West Bengal, or at least the mindset of people in West Bengal. But Prabhupada wanted the world to be part of this. So think about it. Is there a way to increase, in a creative way to increase book distribution? Put your foot in the door and get some appreciation for this nice book. So when I started getting into this, I asked in China, because I go to China, do you have that book in print? No. Can you make a special print? Yes. They made a special print run, and within 36 hours it was sold out, because I was like, rah, 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 so it was sold out. I told Subhas, hey, Subhas. So he reprinted it. It's in the LA warehouse. I don't know how many copies. But the copies are available. The ones that are, as far as I know, the ones that are available are thin paperback books, but they have been printed. Someone gave me a gift copy that came from online. It's a hardcover with full colors. So I'm doing a rah-rah about promoting the book because it's a way that history can change in a way that's innocuous. I mean, very sweet and very simple. You'll see when you see the book. Last slide. Although he wanted to go to Japan, even before coming to the USA, and although he wrote the book Light of the Bhagavad, especially to preach the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam in Japan, Krishna had a different plan for Srila Prabhupada, sending him first to the USA. When Krishna has a plan, that's what you do. But he also had a plan that the course of the mindset of leading people in the world would change by hearing the light of the Bhagavad, hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. He gave his life for that. Of course, many other literatures, but especially Srimad Bhagavatam, and literatures in keeping with Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's see if there's some discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki. Yes.
Maharaj, you mentioned that the book had been published in China. Was it ever published in Japan? Does it have any influence there?
I don't know if the book was published in Japan. Most likely it was published in Japan. But I could find out. But most likely, because that was his intention, so most likely it happened. But the first printing was in the manner we could get it, if possible, done. So most likely yes. I mean, it was printed in Portuguese, German, Spanish, most likely Japanese too. You can write the Kavi Chandra and ask me. Okay. You want the microphone?
So let's give a round of applause for His Holiness Ramapada Maharaj. Hari
because Tamal Krishnamurti's base in the USA ended up in Texas, I'm going to Houston for the Thanksgiving holiday and conducting a 13-part seminar over the Thanksgiving holiday on this book, covering the whole thing beginning to end. So it'll be live streamed. You're welcome to come and join in person or live stream or hear the recording, but then you can get the whole book without even having a book. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So Maharaj will be here in Atlanta for a few days. So you please take the advantage. He has so many classes. It's all posted online. So you can check on the WhatsApp, also email been made. So some of the program are in the home, and some are in the temple, and some are also in the Discovery Center, the building next to the temple building on the left side. So there will be program in the evening, and also there will be Bhagavatam class by Maharaj in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. So if you are free, please come. We'll have Prasad will be served also, so you can hear Maharaj. So it's very nice to hear from Maharaj, and in the Shastra we find that if you hear from the devotees' lips of pure devotees, you get love of God, love of Krishna. Sadhu Sange Harinam E Matra Chai. That means in the association of sadhu, if you hear the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, surely the love for Krishna will rise. So Ramapada Maharaj, he joined this movement almost more than 50 years? More than 50 years. And he's been serving to the Prabhupada, very dedicated. He wrote also many books, giving nice class all over the world. So please come and see him and hear his class. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So I would like to also honor our Sunday sponsor, is Sachin and Anita. They are not here, but they said they're going to look online, whatever we do. So we'll also cut the cake for them. And so we'd like to call Amrita Balaram to come and do the mini arati. And also we'd like to call Tony Mulchandani and family to come and do mini arati. They came a little late in Ratha Yatra, so we want them to do arati for Jagannath, since they are here for the Ratha Yatra time, they missed it. So I'd like to also briefly welcome Bhavatarani Mataji and Nihari Prabhu. They are Prabhupada disciples. They come from India, but they also live time in Hawaii. But they are Bhavatarani Mataji is the first who went to the airport to receive Prabhupada when Prabhupada first time came to Atlanta. Hari Bol. So let's welcome these wonderful devotees. So now we'll get to hear, they'll be singing about Prabhupada. Our husband will be singing Prabhupada, so we can get to hear from them. And at the same time we'll have mini arati also.
Hare Krishna, good evening everyone. Bless yourself. We'd like to sing a song. It's a very old history that I
writings, and it's in English, and we want you all to sing the chorus with it. The chorus is chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Okay.
Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Oh Lord. Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Hiranyakashi Purvoskin, the evil one will see. The bargain with Lord Ramapada, immortality. Not to die in the day, not to die in the night, not to die in the land, not to die in the sea, not to die by animal nor by man. He wanted to live eternally. Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. 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 Prahlad, the boy devotee, was son of this demon king. His father's pride and joy was he, till he heard him sing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Oh Lord, chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. This chanting made that king so mad, tried to kill his son. But Prahlad kept chanting Krishna's names, he could not be done. He threw them to demons that oil them in oil, put them out in the wind and rain. Prahlad kept chanting Krishna's names, so they were not in vain. Bolo, bolo. Chanting, chanting, chanting the names of the Lord. 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 Janakashi Puranil, Prahlad, Iskcon here. Struck his column with his fist, for the singer here. It wasn't by day, wasn't by night, wasn't on land, it wasn't on sea, wasn't by animal, nor by man. He was killed by the supreme personality. Bolo, bolo. Chanting, chanting,
We always follow the song with the Nishriya prayers, which you all know.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Hare Krishna. So let's let's give a wonderful applause for Baba Dayanath and Nihari Prabhu for wonderful performance. So I really thank both of them for coming here. Hopefully, if you like, you can stay here. We have made the arrangement as well. So, Baba Dayanath, as I have mentioned before, that she is the one who first received Prabhupada in Atlanta airport when Prabhupada came first to Atlanta. Let's give a round of applause for her for that. Before we go into announcement, I would request, because she knows Prabhupada came here, so I request her to speak few words. We don't have much time, so she'll speak for 5 to 6 minutes, and then we'll have more announcement, and then we'll have prasadam. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So I first of all offer up my humble obeisances to my Guru Srila Prabhupada. I was born in Atlanta at Emory Hospital, and my grandfather was one of the founders of Emory Hospital and University. And but I first started aspiring to be a devotee in Hawaii in 1971, and they actually had us open a temple, but it didn't work out. So I came home to my hometown and moved into the temple on, I think, 14th or 13th Street. Yeah, but when I first got here, there was no temple, so I had a hard time finding the devotees, and I finally found them. And at the time, we were all being thrown in jail, and we couldn't do Harinam or distribute books, and my cousin was the mayor, so I went with Balavan to the only initiated devotee in the temple. And we took him the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Samaha Prasadam, and we told him the story of the Kazi. And so his name was Sam Hassel. He just passed away recently. And he read the entire teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and he made up an ordinance to match the Kazis for Lord Chaitanya, that the devotees could chant, dance, sing, do kirtan, distribute the books within the city limits of Atlanta with no obstruction. I had never met Srila Prabhupada. In June or July, Hridayananda arranged for him to be on television in Gainesville. So he flew from New York to Gainesville, and on his way back, he stopped at the Atlanta airport for 2.5 hours. And we prepared for it for about a month. And we even made him a vyasasana to take to the airport. And when he got there, we had the vyasasana on top of 2 tables, so he was a little wary about going on it, but he got in there and he sat down, and he was emanating a blue effulgence that day. And also I was able to make the garland for him, because I lived in Hawaii. We didn't have deities. No one knew how to make a garland for a human being except for me. We just, so I made the garland, and I thought I had to use every single flower they gave me. So the garland went all the way to his feet. And when he got off the plane, when he entered the door of the airplane, the entire airplane lit up. And then the airplane door, lit up. And then he started walking down the steps, and the wind was blowing his silk garments, and he looked like a lion holding his head high. And when he went to walk across the tarmac, his feet didn't seem to touch the ground, and he looked like a swan. And then he sat down, and the devotees had a play prepared for him. And one of the devotees was Narada Muni, and the story was the cobbler and the Brahmin. And he was so excited to see Srila Prabhupada. Jananjaya was his name. He couldn't stop paying obeisances. He was paying obeisances to Prabhupada, to the doors, to the people, to the floor, to the ceiling. And Prabhupada said, he took over the narration of the play. He says, just see, Narada Muni is so humble that he pays obeisances to everyone and everything. And then he narrated the entire play. And then afterwards, they gave him some prasadam, and before they shut the sliding door, he tossed a piece of watermelon into his mouth. That's it. Then they opened up back up, and he spoke. And at the end, a man who was a biologist fell at his feet. Well, he asked a question. He said, "Oh, I'm a biologist at Emory University." And Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, so you are killing frogs?" He goes, "Yes, but we are killing them so that we may understand them better." And Srila Prabhupada said, "I would like to understand you better. May I kill you?" And he threw himself at Srila Prabhupada's feet. And Prabhupada had those shoes with the curled top. And he actually kissed Prabhupada's shoes and said, "You may do whatever you like." And then as Srila Prabhupada was leaving to go back home to the airplane, there was a devotee named Vaikuntha who had brought his mother, who was dying of cancer, in a wheelchair. And she jumped out of the wheelchair and threw herself at Prabhupada's feet and said, "I'm dying." And he said, he patted her on the head and said, "Do not worry." And then he went back and got on the airplane and took the entire spiritual world back with him and left us with deep longing to have this association again. Just one more thing, I just found out recently that I was the first devotee from Atlanta, Georgia, initiated by Srila Prabhupada.
First of all, I'd like to offer my Koti Dandava pranams to my spiritual master, Om Vishnupada Astutara Sattva Shishima A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and equally to my preceptors, instructing masters, to the audience, to the Sannyas Maharaj who's here today, devotees and guests. And please accept my most humble obeisances and please shower your mercy on me so I may get a little drop of, actually realize my spiritual master and his glories and get to see him again. Although actually he never dies. So I was also a first disciple of Srila Prabhupada in Argentina. About 1 month after my initiation, that was in November, in December we flew to Los Angeles with my brother-in-law, my sister, Dr. Dasi, and we were introduced to Srila Prabhupada. And it was neat to see the book Easy Journey to Other Planets that Prabhupada, one of the first books, printed. And they were also the first 3 books that I edited in Spanish, and I brought them, and we were in this room, and I was very nervous, and I couldn't say anything. I kept on signaling to come closer to him, and I finally did. He had me very close to him, right almost down there, and he kind of, Prabhupada could say a million things to his eyes, like from don't do that to okay, and he could speak without saying a word. And so I said, I realized, I had the books. Yeah, I brought you this book. Yeah, there were the first 3 books in Spanish, and at that time it was Iskcon, I'm trying to remember, it wasn't BBT yet, there was no Spanish BBT. And so the books were printed in the US and sent there, but they weren't edited too well. So I edited them because we went to, my sister she had her own company in design and publicity. And so we knew the best printers in Buenos Aires and also in Europe. And so we were very excited. We wanted to get these books first class. So when we brought them to the printers, the other editors said, you need to better the language in this book. And so I edited them with the help of the professor too. And so those were the books that I brought to Srila Prabhupada. And, so then I gave him the books, and he was like a child that you give him his favorite candy. It was his eyes open up, he smiled like so radiant, and he proceeded to read the titles in perfect Spanish. So I'm thinking, wow, Prabhupada speaks Spanish, and yeah, he read my mind, and he turned around and said, Krishna speaks even the birds' language. So that my relationship with him went on. That was because of my friend, my brother-in-law, and also other devotees that I met, and they came. One to Buenos Aires, Keshala Prabhu. It was Karandar Prabhu was the GBC then of South America, and Keshala, his brother. Keshala, I think, was one of the first ones to distribute Krishna book door to door. Munibanda, I think it was. No.
I didn't realize I was before that, but before it was done wide scale. We just thought that would be a nice thing to do, so we took Krishna book, and in Atlanta, Georgia, right in the area where the temple was it 13th Street?
13th Street.
Yeah. And we just went door to door and distributed Krishna book.
Yeah, so you can imagine the enthusiasm. And we didn't have any books then. Actually, Krishna book was kind of the first. Well, we had the 2 Srimad Bhagavatams, so they were in English. Ourselves, we only had 3 little books. And that's how we distributed in Buenos Aires and like that. So there's a lot to say that just we have very little time. There were morning walks in Mayapur with Srila Prabhupada, and they were, I think, very key to realize what was important to him, and books were very, very important. But also the well-being of all his disciples and second generation of the children were very important to him. There was an episode I don't have time to talk about, and that was my first time to see Prabhupada angry. You don't want to see Prabhupada angry. He stopped and he hit the cane on the ground. I thought the earth was parting. Everybody went back like this, and he talked about how important, how to take care of children, and how important it was. Not even because a teacher had punished a child, one of the boys, by not feeding him for a day. And Prabhupada was furious about that. So I said, no, that's not the way to do it. So many instructions were there.
He said that teacher should be hanged.
We're here in kind of family, so I don't want to be given a picture of Prabhupada. Things also started. Prabhupada was very funny too. My brother-in-law had been sannyas, so he came. Again, we went to get several darshans, and one of the darshans was right after his massage. And so Prabhupada's leaning back, he had only his gamcha and his desk, and so his leg was crossed like that, and all he see was a golden knee sticking out. And so, and Hanuman said, Prabhupada, I'm again so sorry I failed you. I said, no. He said, spiritual life is like this, it's like playing mridanga. The more you practice, the better you get. So don't give up in your Krishna consciousness, keep on chanting and remembering that Prabhupada, he says he never done this. Oh, the knee, he was playing with his knee like you play mridanga. He went like this. So it's a play mridanga, the more you practice, the better you get at it. So have patience, tolerance, and continue on to chant. Have faith, it has results, you better believe it. And like Prabhupada said, I'm in my books, I live in them forever. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. So let's give a round of applause for Baba Jai Mataji and Ganesh Ji. Ni Hari Prabhu. Haribo! Haribo! Thank you all for coming.
Today's the cleansing of Indian here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iskcon Vrindavan just reissued my song of coloring books. And I have a song, The Cleansing of the Temple. And they put a bark. Yeah, and the books, yeah. Yeah, and then the songs here. But I don't have the books with me, they were just printed in Vrindavan. But they put a QR code in the book, and I didn't bring the right one. Oh no. Anyway, I didn't bring the right book. This is no, but anyway, you can go on YouTube to Iskcon Vrindavan and go to Songs of India, Bavatrini, and you can join the channel, and then you can either put all the songs in your, save them, or you can just do the song about the Gundicha Mandir for today, and you can just listen to it, or you can just play it, but the easiest way is to join the channel.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So I'd like to call Amrita Balaram, please come forward. So today we have a Sunday feast sponsor, Sachin and Anita Mehotra family. They are sponsoring Sunday feast in the name of their daughters Akash and Ashmi. The parents are actually seeking the blessings for their both daughters so they can remain good Vaishnavis and also get the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and deities of Radha, Madan Mohan, Gaurita and Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. Can we pray for this wonderful family? They are not here. They are not here. Where are they? They are in Florida. They are in Florida, but they are watching online.
They're watching online.
So you can pray for this wonderful. They actually sponsor Sunday feast for all of us. So please pray for them by chanting Hare Krishna one time by raising our hand. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So on behalf of them, Amrita Balaram will receive the gift from the temple. Haribo. And also, they made a nice cake for all of you. So you'll also cut the cake on behalf of them. So we chant Haribo 3 times and then cut the cake. Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Hare Krishna. I just have to mention one more announcement is there that if you are Iskcon Atlanta Temple monthly members, and if you haven't received your monthly magazine, Back to Glory magazine, then you can see us at the book table outside, and you can get a free complimentary Back to Glory magazine from us. Thank you, Hare Krishna. So now we'll have final darshan of the deities, and the prasadam will be served outside. Hare Krishna.